Hello and welcome to another edition of Fight News Now Extra. I'm John Pollock. Coming up in just a few moments, I'll be joined by Robin Black as we discuss all of the fallout from Saturday's UFC on Fox 14 card, including Alexander Gustafsson getting mauled in Sweden, Gegard Mousasi makes quick work of Dan Henderson, and Ryan Bader extends his win streak to 4 straight. Anthony Rumble Johnson silenced the hometown crowd in Sweden on Saturday night, blowing past fan favorite Alexander Gustafsson en route to a first-round TKO victory. The bout started out competitively, with Johnson acting as the aggressor and the former title challenger Gustafsson looking to counterpunch. After an unintentional eye poke, however, the American would turn on the pressure, getting the Swedish fighter down and landing a number of heavy strikes, prompting referee Mark Goddard to intervene at 2 minutes 10 seconds of the very first round. The co-feature saw Gegard Mousasi return to the win column as he took out former Strikeforce champion Dan Henderson just over a minute into the first frame. Despite protesting the call afterwards, Henderson was clearly in trouble after lunging into a Mousasi right hand that staggered him, followed by a left cross that put him down on the canvas. Follow-up punches would seal the deal for Mousasi, who picks up his 36th career victory. Henderson, meanwhile, has dropped 5 of his last 6. And it wasn't pretty, but Ryan Bader extended his current win streak to 4 as he edged past fellow wrestling specialist Phil Davis to earn a split decision. Both men enjoyed brief success on the feet, but it was the Ultimate Fighter Season 8 winner Bader who was able to land the cleaner strikes, as well as use his wrestling to keep Davis off of him. In the end, it may have been a late takedown in the third round that earned the win for the Arizona native, who improves to 19-4 with the victory. And we look ahead to this Saturday night with UFC 183. It kicks off at 7 p.m. Eastern on Fight Pass with 3 fights coming your way. 8 o'clock p.m. we'll send you over to TSN for the prelim fights featuring Miesha Tate and Sarah McMahon, as well as Ed Herman and Derek Brunson. And then the pay-per-view kicks off at 10 p.m. 5 big fights headlined by Anderson Silva and Nick Diaz in your middleweight main event. And you'll want to catch our pre-show live this Saturday at 7 Eastern. Robin, we are coming off of the UFC's, I guess, second largest venue they ever ran in their history on Saturday night.
Toronto's number one. Toronto's number one.
Yeah, you're not getting a show anytime soon, but you can hold that distinction, Toronto. But 30,000 people at the Tele2 Arena, many of which paid for those tickets to go watch Alexander Gustafsson take on Anthony Johnson in the main event. I think that regardless of where Alexander Gustafsson goes in his career, this will be a crossroad for him. How he handles a loss that not only of huge professional magnitude, but on a personal level, knowing how much was on your shoulders going into the fight, the promotion, going into Sweden with such a huge spotlight. It's really interesting how this guy mentally adjusts to a loss like this.
Yeah, failure is an incredibly painful thing, an epic failure. And most of us don't consider that failure. Real fight fans, people who really understand what it is for 2 behemoths to get into a cage together in front of 30,000 people and 1 million or whatever watching on TV, understand that this can happen. But it will be perceived by Alexander Gustafsson as a massive failure in his life. And whether that makes him a stronger man, whether he comes out of that and he takes what you're going to get out of that, he takes the lessons that are going to be learned, and he comes back, it could make him a superhuman. What you hope it doesn't do is haunt him for the rest of his life, because this is part of fighting. I mean, he had never been knocked out before, so there was a whole bunch of new experiences for him. But yeah, you make a really interesting point. You really do. And you hope that the guy comes back, takes some time, refocuses, and it just makes him stronger.
Alexander Gustafsson, obviously the favorite going into this fight. I thought that it would just be a real battle of attrition here going into those later rounds. The speed of Gustafsson that I thought would be a big difference maker, but the power always relied on the side of Anthony Johnson. That was a big key in this fight. And watching Anthony Johnson, any new wrinkles to his game that you saw that maybe didn't going into this fight?
Man, he is the real thing. And I think people are going to make a pretty big mistake over the next while by saying, well, it's his power. Oh, man, is power enough? Like, is he going to be able to use that power on Jon Jones? If Jon Jones can take away that power. This is not just a powerful athlete. This is an incredible fighter. And my breakdown last week was about his incredible defensive fighting. When he fought Phil Davis, Phil threw 95 headshots, and he landed 9 of them. And Phil's a very good fighter. Anthony Johnson's footwork is amazing. He has the ability to catch and throw, parry as good or better than anybody, certainly at light heavyweight. If you get past that, he moves his head well. He's defensively incredibly sound, and he moves in such a way. Henry Hoof did a brilliant job with this man because he took his strengths, which is, of course, his ability to generate strength, explosiveness, power, and he made him wherever he moves at any given time, he's always in balance. So if you have a man who's always in balance and defensively sound, you got a pretty scary guy, and he's going to be a monster threat to Jon Jones.
And conversely, by using that kind of tactic, you did see Gustafsson, who is usually very concise with his striking, just started, throwing wildly because his game plan seemed to be thrown off immediately in that fight. And you go back to the Phil Davis fight with Anthony Johnson. How many times did we see Davis try to take Anthony Johnson down? Incredible takedown defense. I agree with you. There's a lot more to the fight with Jon Jones than simply this guy has power in his hands. There's a lot to that fight that you can really break down. But for Anthony Johnson at this point in his career, this is the biggest win of his career, and now to build upon that momentum, how do you prepare? How do you take what we have seen thus far in the past year from him, take that towards a Jon Jones level? Because that's a giant escalation at the light heavyweight division. Yeah, well, I think the goal with him and Henry Hooft, and we're seeing this in a lot of cases with this fighter-coach relationship as it evolves, is creating this symbiotic relationship where the coach really gets the fighter, and these two get each other. And the goal has been to make Anthony Johnson the best Anthony Johnson humanly possible. Play to his strengths, improve his weaknesses, and just make him the best fighter that you can. That's what they've been doing all the way along, and I think they'll just continue that. I don't think they're going to be heavily planning for anything special with Jon Jones. I think they're going to make Jon Jones have to plan for special things with Anthony Johnson. Yeah, very interesting picture now at 205 pounds, and where Alexander Gustafsson goes from this. Conversely, I think the obvious fight is Daniel Cormier. I think it's a fight a lot of people would like to see. And if you look at the light heavyweight division, there are those top 4. You can maybe include Rashad Evans. It's those 5, and then I think there's a drop-off after that point, and it's mixing and matching. Yeah, I want to point out one last thing, and that is that you saw Anthony Johnson, when his fallen opponent was in tears, he talked about, I feel bad for this guy. He didn't achieve his dream. He felt terrible for him. You saw Jon Jones just relishing the fact that Daniel Cormier was in tears. And I think we all relate a lot more to Anthony Johnson's view of it, and we hope that Gustafsson does well going forward. And that is all for Robin Black and myself. We have more Fight News Now Extra coming your way. Stay tuned.